Hey guys, this video almost deserves to go on the Myths About Japan playlist for reasons that you'll see shortly. Had no intention of making this video, but just sort of presented itself today. Some of you guys would be aware that this old, crappy, noisy car that I'm sitting in is a loan car that was supposed to be for, well, first it was supposed to be for a day, and then it was supposed to be for a week. And that was how long ago, guys? I've lost count. 5 or 6 weeks ago? 5 or 6 weeks ago, something like that. And it was supposed to be temporary until another car came along to replace it. And there's just been nothing. And when I last talked about this in a video, I'd actually just called the car guy and asked him, and he said, oh, you'll have it this week. And when was that, guys? 2 weeks ago? So that's one thing just presented itself again today, because it's the end of the week and it's another week that's passing and I'm still driving around in this little noisy old car. So the other thing that happened today is I was talking to the guy in that last video. I was talking about the guy that had been talking to a real estate agent trying to organise to buy some land, and he hadn't heard back from the real estate agent. Some of you will remember that story, and he still hasn't. Right? He sent a couple more messages and basically is none the wiser than he was last time. So it's sort of interesting, because the reason I said it could go on the Myths About Japan playlist is that Japan has an image of where service is always good, right? I'd say the truth is service is usually very good and very fast. One example of that is in restaurants. Sometimes when we have visitors here from Australia, we'll be sitting in a restaurant and you either sumimasen, call the staff, or you push a button. These days, most of the restaurants have a button. You push the button, it goes ping pong, and the staff come, right? And it's sort of funny because they come really quickly. You go ping pong, and they go boom, and they say matsu tashimashita. And our friends are always surprised how fast they come. And then they laugh when we tell them that when the staff come, they say, sorry to keep you waiting, right? And in actual fact, you've probably been waiting 5 or 10 seconds from when you push the button to when they're standing at your table. Usually, not always, but usually it's like, boom, there they are, apologising for taking so long to come, sorry to keep you waiting. And so that's quite common here, It's also the country where they developed the Toyota production line is sort of world famous for their just-in-time system that they use, and we couldn't actually show you that. They're very strict about letting us use videos in their factory, but we went on a tour of their factory a while ago, and it's amazing. It's really amazing watching the cars go through the production line, and it's so efficient and so fast, and it all just comes together, and that is quite often the case here. Everything's really efficient. I had a medical checkup earlier in the week, just a yearly check that we get here, and it's just like a production line. You sit down, they get your information. There's a bit of faffing at first, but once it starts rolling, it's really efficient. They take you to the next station, and you sit down, and the nurse comes, and you do the next step, and you do the next step, and you do the next step. They're really, really efficient. All your health checks, and super efficient. And that's usually the case here. That's usually the case. The myth would have to be that the image is that it's always the case here, that it's always efficient and really fast, because that's a myth, because it isn't. And it just seems that now and again there'll be a system that's inadequate, or sorry, losing you guys over there. Wait a minute, I'll just sort you out. Again, see, in this little loaner car, my camera system's not as good as it is in the other car. So where was I? Oh yeah, so yeah, that is often the case, but not always the case. And when you get things like this car situation, where there must be something, he's getting the car from somewhere else, there's a delay somewhere in the system. The last video I was talking about bad communication, because he hasn't been telling me what's going on. So the only communication I've had from him in the last 5 or 6 weeks was the beginning of last week, when I called him and asked him what was happening, and he said that it would be sorted last week, which obviously it wasn't, and I haven't heard from him since. So having said to me last week, it'll be done this week, and then it wasn't, but he didn't call me to tell me, and another week has passed, and you know, next week will be a new week, and it'll be week 6 or 7 or whatever it is, and he still hasn't called to tell me. So that's an extension of that last video about how communication could be really poor here. So there's a combination of bad communication and faffing, which results in sometimes really bad service and really slow service. And you know, that's, if you haven't seen that communication video, watch that, because that's the topic of that one. But this one's just more about how surprising it is sometimes how long things can take. So how long it's taken to get this car thing sorted, and how long it's taken for our friend to have a response to his real estate goings on there. And that's a Japanese guy, by the way, a Japanese guy dealing with a Japanese real estate agency. So there's no communication breakdown. Well, there possibly is, but it's not a language thing. So there's that, and then there's a million other examples. Another one that some of you guys might have caught in an old video was there's a funny thing they do with food, and like food trucks and things like that. The food trucks that they have here quite often, the one that came to mind was, we were at the monkey park. Some of you might have seen the video from the monkey park, and they had a food truck there that had all sorts of tasty food, and they had one guy working there, and the good thing was that he was making everything fresh, but the bad thing was it just wasn't geared up for more than one customer at a time. So one customer would come along and say, I want some of those fried noodles, and I want one of those things and one of those things, and he'd go, right, and he'd start making all those things from scratch, you know, and the rest of us would be waiting, the other customers would be waiting, and then finally he'd get that all done, he'd give it to that customer, and then he'd say, next, you know, and the next customer would say, I want some fried noodles, right? Because he only sold, I can't remember how, 3 or 4 things, you know, and there's a line of customers there, which means, you know, the obvious solution was for him just to make lots of fried noodles and lots of his other 3 or 4 things, and then when each customer came, he'd have it all ready to go, and he could go next. But that's not what he did. He had this thing where he'd start from scratch for every customer, and this isn't the only time we've seen that. We've seen that lots of times with not just food carts like that, but also restaurants like that, where they just deal with every customer one at a time, and it takes 10 minutes to deal with one customer, and you're watching, okay, it's taking him 10 minutes to deal with one customer, there's 3 customers ahead of us, we're going to be waiting 30 minutes before you even get to order. And that monkey park, that's what it was. It took us 30 minutes just to get to the counter, and then we had to order, and then we had to wait 10 minutes for him to get ours. Just illogical, you know. And so the point of this video is it's sort of a heads up video that if you come to Japan and you know you've got that image, because it's the thing, people come here with this image, and usually the experience here is extremely fast service and very efficient, very fast. If they've got a good system in place, you know, that's the key with a lot of these big restaurants and things here, and even some of the smaller ones. If they have a good system in place, it can be very fast and very efficient. But unfortunately, quite often, you know, with the car guy and with the real estate guy and with the food truck and with some of these restaurants, if they don't have a good system in place, sometimes it can be ridiculously slow. And the other perhaps one of the contributing reasons for that is that Japanese people are extremely patient. So when you get a situation where everybody's just waiting, they'll just wait. And it's interesting to watch my wife react to a situation like that food cart. You know, I was standing there with her, and I looked how many customers there were, looked how long he was taking, and I said to her, we're not going to get to order for 30 minutes, you know, because there's 3 people ahead of us. And she's fine. She's happy just to stand there. You know, we've got a noodle shop not far from our house that's really sort of popular, and it's the same. You see people queuing out there. At the moment during the day it's like 35, 36 degrees, really hot, and people will be queuing out there outside the shop in the sun, and they'll just be queuing up, and that shop's got a similar sort of system that they deal with each customer really slowly, and that means everybody has to wait a really long time just to get in there and buy some noodles. You know, it's just crazy. It's just crazy, and there's no need for it. You know, it's easy to streamline a system where all the customers get better service. You you know, and they're not all waiting so long. But they just, the customers don't complain. The customers just patiently wait. You know, in some countries the customers would complain, or they just walk away, and you don't see them do that here. There'll be a long queue waiting for something like that food truck at the monkey park, and they just patiently wait. You know, which is usually what I do, usually too, because if it's something my wife wants and my kids want, then they're being patient and patiently waiting, then I have to too. But if I have a choice, you know, sometimes we'll get a situation where we pull up outside a restaurant that we're going to, and I can see the long line, and I'll just say, nah, let's go to that other place, you know. And if I can convince them to go to another place, we'll go to another place, rather than stand there and wait 30 minutes to get seated, which the people do that all the time here. They do it all the time, you know. So it's surprising. It really is surprising. There was just those two things today again with the car and the real estate guy that we spoke about. Was that a week or 2 weeks ago? And same thing again today. And then once I started to think about this, of course, that food cart from the monkey park came to my mind straight away. And we've got lots of examples of that. Another one just came to mind. We had a festival here, summer festival here, and we went and ordered food, and it was exactly the same as that. And it's sort of like they're surprised. It's sort of like, well, I don't know, maybe they're not surprised, but it's just like, you know, it'll be a Sunday, and there'll be lots of people there because it's a Sunday. Now it's the summer holidays, you know, so of course they're going to be busy. The other one was Beachland, is like a marine park, you know. They've got dolphins and penguins and things, and we've been there probably most summers. We end up going there at some stage because the kids really like it, and we'll go there, and every time we go there they've sold out half their food, and you've got to wait 30 minutes to get to the counter to order because there's not enough staff and there's not enough food, you know. And it happens every year. So every year we go in summer, they've got a menu up with all the food on it, and then you get to the counter after waiting 30 minutes, you get to the counter to order, and they go, oh no, we haven't got that, we're sold out of that, and we haven't got that, we're sold out of that. And it happens every year, which means they're not stocking enough food for the number of people that they know what they're going to have, and they don't have enough staff there to serve the customers fast enough, you know. So that guy at the monkey park in that food truck was there on his own. So he was there on his own, which was the first problem. And then the second problem was he didn't have a good system going. He wasn't doing any preparation. He was just dealing with each customer as they came. So it's not a complaint, by the way. You know, you sort of get used to it. You know. So these guys don't complain. They don't jump up and down. They just usually they just accept it. There'll be no comments. You know, when you're standing in a row of people here waiting 30 minutes to order your lunch, there's no sign of any sort of frustration. They all sort of stand there quietly. Most of them are just staring at their phones, and usually there's no sort of sighing or body language to show that they're frustrated, or comments or anything. And then when they do get to the counter, usually the staff will say, oh, you know, sorry to keep you waiting, and that they usually won't complain at all because they're used to it. It's just what they do, which is probably the other reason this continues to happen, is because if the customers walked away or complained, probably they'd have to develop a new system. But because the customers don't walk away and don't complain, they just allow it to continue like it is. So this is a major heads up video, because you can't, in that situation where nobody's complaining and nobody's uncomfortable, if you complain, you'll be seen as the problem. It'll be like, hey, listen, we're all being patient. They sort of see that sort of thing as being childish. You know, if everybody's being cool and accepting the situation and not making any waves, because what would happen is, if you're in a situation like that and you do complain, it's going to make all the other people feel uncomfortable. It's going to make the staff feel uncomfortable, but also the other customers who are waiting, they'll feel really uncomfortable. So that's why nobody complains. Everybody just stands there quietly, because they don't want to create a bad vibe. Because the way they see it is, this is a perfectly acceptable thing. We'll get to the front, we'll get our food, we'll be happy. It's sort of almost like, sometimes with the queuing thing, it's sort of almost like it makes it more worthwhile. Another one just came to my mind. There was a place we went to once that was famous for its crepes, and again it was sort of like a caravan, in this car park, but it was really famous for its crepes, and people used to talk all the time, oh, wonderful crepes. And if it was just me, there's no way I would have gone and stood there and waited to get a crepe, you know. But my wife was really, really keen, so we went and stood there and waited forever for these crepes. And it's sort of like they see it like these things are really desirable. That's why there's such a long line, and the anticipation and the waiting so long makes it more enjoyable when you actually get there, when you actually get the thing that you're waiting for. That's the way they see it. There was actually a thing a long time ago, I talked about it in the video. There was a business that had just opened, and they actually sort of organised it so they'd end up with a big long line out the front of the shop, because the Japanese reaction to a long line is, that must be good. I've actually had my wife say, my wife has seen a line outside a shop, a food shop or like a restaurant, and said, oishi so, which means it looks tasty, or it is tasty, or it must be tasty, or it seems tasty, oishi so. And that was entirely based on the fact there was a long line of people waiting, which is interesting, isn't it? The Japanese reaction to a long line is to go stand in it. Another one just came to mind. We went to a day event, emergency services event at the fire station, and they had all sorts of things going on. And there was one boring thing, I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was shooting little dart guns, rubber suction dart guns at targets or something. And there was a really long line at this thing, and people were coming from the car park and coming into this fire station area and just automatically standing in this line without being fully aware of what was at the end of it. They're just automatically doing it. When they see a long line, they assume it's something good, and they automatically go in the line. Whereas in a lot of countries, a long line, people are going to go, no, I don't want to do that, we'll go somewhere else, won't we? But not here. The long line and the long wait is sort of like, they just accept it as being a normal thing, that it's just a part of it, you know. So in the circumstance with the real estate guy, I was saying the Japanese guy today, you haven't heard from him. Oh, he sent a mail and said please wait a moment or something, and that was it. So the guys, those who missed the other video, this guy's trying to buy this piece of land, and he asked the guy to make an offer, and it's just nothing happened, and nothing's happening, and he doesn't know why, but he's just being cool, he's just being patient and just waiting, you know, which is what I got to do with this car thing. I already called him once, beginning of last week, and he told me that, you know, it'd be there that last week, and it isn't, but already calling him once about it was once too many, probably. So I know it's coming, I know it's late, he knows it's late, so the right thing for me to do is just do nothing and just wait till eventually it shows up. My plan is, when it turns up, by the way, it's like a 3-year-old Suzuki Wagon R, which at one stage was Japan's most popular or most sold car, or most bought car or something. Wagon R, very popular, which is the car I had before this one. I've actually had a couple of Wagon Rs over the years. They're really good cars. So it's supposed to be a 3-year-old Wagon R with only 30,000 kilometres on it. So when it turns up, which it probably will, I'll do a video and I'll show you guys, because some of you guys are into cars, so I'll show you. But until it shows up, whenever that is, I just have to be patient. So it's not easy, you know. It doesn't come naturally. A lot of these things, you know, I make these videos and saying this is the way it is and you just got to accept it. Doesn't mean it's easy to accept it, you know, which is why it's important to make the videos. Because people who come here anticipating that the service is always going to be good, and maybe the first 6 months they're here they get really good service, and then suddenly they hit a roadblock. The other one just came to mind, is the banks and the post office. Quite often in the bank, you'll take a number and then they'll call you and you go to the counter and say this is what I want to do, and they'll say okay, thank you, and they'll take your bank book or whatever and they'll say please take a seat, and they'll go faff around for 10-15 minutes and then come back and call your name. And that happens at the bank and at the post office quite often for really simple transactions, and it'll just be because they've got some faffing system that's got too much faffing, and that it just makes it take too long. But that's the way they do it, and that's the way they always do it. And quite often with the bank and the post office, the underlying thinking is that the reason that it takes so long is they're being very careful. And in fairness, it'd be very rare for there to be a mistake at the bank or the post office, but the fact that they take so long to do everything, that would be the justification that not just the people in the post office would use, and the bank, not just the staff would say that it's because they're being careful, but the customers would say that too. We actually had a Japanese guy leave a comment on one of the videos recently. I was talking about people driving too close to each other, and he said, it's because they're being kind and considerate to the people behind them, which actually makes no sense from a physics point of view. You know, driving closer to the car in front doesn't help the people behind you at all. But that's the automatic Japanese reaction to any sort of criticism of the status quo, is to find a justification for it. My wife will do that too. It's pretty rare for me to complain about anything to her because it makes her uncomfortable. Always best never to complain to Japanese people. Made a video about that 15 years ago. You know, don't complain, because it makes people uncomfortable, and it doesn't. Their thinking is it's childish. If you complain, it's childish, and it doesn't fix the problem anyway. So why are you complaining? But if I ever do say anything that might be a little bit critical of anything, my wife will usually come up with a justification. A famous one was once there was a truck driver doing some insane thing in front of us, really driving really fast and being really crazy, and whoa, you know, I sort of made some sort of whoa, geez, you know, that's pretty dangerous. And her reaction was, they've got very tight schedules. So her automatic reaction for his dangerous behaviour was to justify it with why he's driving like a maniac, is he's on a really tight schedule. Hey guys, some of you guys remember the video I made recently about the VIP parking? I'm at the dojo. This car park I can see it's just about full. I can't see any spaces at all. But you know where I can see a space? The entrance is just beside us here, right? You know where I can see a space? Right here on the left, and it says only small cars. And because of that, none of these big cars can park in there. So there's the VIP parking. Those of you who didn't see that video already, VIP parking, I think I called it. Exactly, good example. This is another one of the many reasons why driving one of these tiny cars in Japan is a good idea. I got the VIP parking close to the entrance, and I can't see another space anywhere. So there you go, that works. So anyway, that was the heads up video, guys. I don't know what I'm going to call this video yet. It's going to be something like slow bad service in Japan or something like that, because it exists. It does exist. You know, now and again you get this really slow faffing service. Maybe I'm going to call it that, slow faffing service in Japan, but it does exist. And so the point of this video, it's not a complaining video. None of our videos are complaining. All we're doing is pointing out stuff like this so that when you come here and experience it, you'll go, I've heard about this, and it makes it just a little bit easier to deal with when you know that you already knew that it existed. You know, that's the point of this video. So if you experience it, you'll know it exists. Okay, I've heard about this. Yeah, okay, I've got to be cool. I have to be cool and not complain. Just accept it and be cool and be nice to the staff. And when I get to the front counter and I get to order, I've got to be really nice and friendly, because that's the right behaviour. Don't act frustrated or pissed off, because that's just going to make the other people feel bad, which makes you look very uncivilized, basically. So that's to help those people who might come here and experience it, but also maybe it's slightly interesting to people who are interested in Japanese culture and Japanese life, because it does happen. Anyway, I've got to go and get sweaty now. It's about, up in that dojo, it will be about 37 degrees and about 80% humidity. So it's pretty harsh. So I'm going to go do that. More videos coming soon.